Hi everyone. We're going to look at performing a regression analysis and investigating a mediation in between variables. So, what is mediation? Mediation is sort of a causal chain where one variable affects a second variable, and that variable in turn affects a third variable. So, for example, in our example, let's say for previous studies suggest that there is a strong relationship between person's speaking ability and its ability to predict the ability to communicate effectively. So that would be X affects Y, right? However, maybe I think one's ability to speak well is not necessarily the main reason that a person can communicate effectively. Maybe I think also that one should have the ability to listen well in order to communicate effectively, that you need both things. So this is sort of a typical case of mediation analysis. In this example, listening ability is a mediator that explains the underlying mechanism of the relationship between one's ability to speak and how it affects our ability to communicate effectively. So to perform an analysis like this, you need at least 3 continuous variables, and 2 of which are what we call in regression predictor variables. Predictors are like independent variables. So for these 2 predictor variables, one is the independent variable and one would be the mediator variable. And then the third variable is what we call in regression a criterion variable. And we can think of that as like a dependent variable. So for us, our independent variable will be speaking ability. And our mediator would be listening ability. And then our dependent variable would be the ability to communicate effectively. And we often look at mediation in paths like this. So we're looking at how much does speaking ability affect effective communication, and then we see how the relationship by adding a mediator might look. And the way we run analysis for this, first we run a regression or bivariate regression predicting the dependent variable of communication from the independent variable of speaking. That would be path C here. And then we would do another bivariate regression predicting the mediator from the independent variable. That would be path A here. And then we would do a multiple regression predicting the dependent variable from the mediator variable and the independent variable. And that would be both paths C dash and path B here. Okay, and so let's just go ahead and try this out, right? So we have our different variables here, communication scores, and then our other 2 variables of interest are the speaking and listening scores. So first we're going to do the first analysis that we saw here for path C. We're going to run a regression from speaking and communication. So you would go to Analyze, Regression, and then Linear. And you really just need the most basic statistics for here. So our dependent variable is communication scores, and our independent variable is speaking. And you don't really need to add any more, but I always like to. So I would add maybe descriptive statistics and maybe R squared and even confidence intervals, and then continue, and then just run OK. Okay. So looking at this, we can see we are provided the descriptive statistics for both our communication scores as well as speaking scores and the correlations. And when you go down to ANOVA, you can see there is a significance, and then you can see the coefficients here for speaking scores and how they are their relationship with communication skills. And there's also significance there, right? And so the next analysis that we said that we should run would be path A, which is a comparison between the relationship with speaking skills and listening skills. So now listening skills will become like our dependent variable. So let's run that analysis. So again, we go to Analyze, Regression, Linear. And so we're going to remove the dependent variable, and we're going to make our listening skills the dependent variable. And we'll leave everything the same. And we're going to look to see if there's a relationship there. We do want to see a relationship between these two variables. And yes, we can see there is a significance between speaking and listening. So they do have a relationship with one another. And the last comparison that we were going to take a look at is running a multiple regression with now the communication variable as our dependent variable, and then we're going to put both independent variables, or the independent variable and the moderating variable, in the model. So let's go back to our data and select analysis again, and then linear. We're going to move our listening scores into our independent box, and then our communication scores in our dependent box, and select OK. All right, and so we do see that there is a relationship between all of these with a significant F-score, and you can see individually they are significant and do have a relationship between communication skills and score. So there is one thing you should be aware of. Once you run analysis, you should see if this really truly is a moderating variable, the listening scores. The relationship between speaking scores and the dependent variable should weaken or even disappear. So the stronger the relationship this mediator has, the more you'll see this weaken. And so if you look here, our t statistic here is about 39, and I believe in our initial regression the t statistic was a bit higher. So you can see it did slightly weaken. So you can see there might be a little bit of something going on here. In order to write out or to report out the paths in a report, you would use the beta coefficients to write out what the paths were. So as you can see here, we put the paths for our initial analysis, 0.779, and we found that right here, going back up to our coefficients in our original analysis, under the standardized coefficients beta at 0.779. And then for the next path, right here, for path A, we had the beta coefficient between the moderator and the independent variable is 0.452. And you can see here that it was 0.452. And then I reported the last two scores for speaking scores for path C dash 0.558, and then the listening score 0.490. And you can see them here. And that's how you perform mediation analysis in SPSS using regression. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.